in the Netherlands that is working on all the issues that are coming with water management and subsurface management related to enabling delta life. I think we're facing and witnessing nowadays all around the world the catastrophic effects of systemic risks caused by the way we human beings are accelerating climate change, the loss of biodiversity, dense populated, growing populations in vulnerable areas. And I think we find ourselves in a complex, combined intersect of crises, a water crisis, a health crisis, a climate crisis, a biodiversity crisis. And the question is, how can we solve this complex situation? What will it take? And we've already been discussing over the past days this complex systemic question. First, on Monday, we were focusing on the financial perspective, the financial economic way we were run into this, and how can we get out of this? And one of the main insights we got from Gareth Phillips, for example, was that looking at financing climate measures, we see that there is a strong investment and leading money into the mitigation challenge of the going into a new energy system which will have zero carbon emissions. And of course, I think this is crucial. We've just read the IPCC report that is putting on the red flag for human mankind and saying that if we are not running out, that we're running out of time, and if we're not speeding up this energy transition, then also adaptation will not be necessary anymore. So I'm not advocating a competition when it comes to money for mitigation and adaptation. However, we're lacking money for adaptation. And what also came out of this interesting conversation is that the developing countries who are facing yesterday and today and tomorrow the severe impacts of climate change in an extreme way did not cause the problem, but are looking for ways to overcome the impacts that they're facing. And developed countries that are more or less responsible for all the emissions that lead to this climate change crisis feel a bit hesitant to get involved, to see if once they're in, they can't get out for decades, and that they don't know what they are about to do, to merging in. And this frustration and lack of willingness to step forward can no longer be there. And also for private sector, it's quite difficult to see how they can participate. There is no clear business model for them or return on the investments, and we have to overcome this. And then yesterday, we were talking about disruptive approaches for a transformative recovery. We know that worldwide, all governments and regions and organizations are willing to invest in the recovery of societies and economies after they were hit by the COVID pandemic crisis. But how are we going to do this, to move forward, to make big steps that are combining recovery of the social economic system with preparedness, with adaptation to climate change? And this also is about the involvement and of different perspectives of the local water security, the gender involvement and diversity and inclusion approach, climate mainstreaming in, for example, the WASH perspective. And I think this systemic change requires complex interventions. And it's about our behavior, it's about our values and willingness to change the way we've been moving forward over the past decades. But it also challenges new partnerships. And this is something that we would like to elaborate also today. And I think that it requires global solidarity. And we've also seen in the pandemic situation that sometimes we're disappointed that high-income countries keep the vaccines for themselves and even consider the third vaccine for their people, while a large part of the world has no access to vaccines. So can we count on global solidarity? No. On the other hand, we see some attempts to get there, to make improvements. And it's also the case that we have these vaccines because of the global competition between scientists. So we have to work together and combine global measures, global debates, global solidarity with regional and local action. And it's in one hand at working at all these parts of the system at the same point. What makes working on water management issues in the context of all this, what is going to happen, extremely difficult is that more or less water has characteristics of the commons. It's of all of us in many areas in the world. There is no price for water. It's just available as a common good. But also in countries where we have put water into the economic system, it's still a complex situation of multi-ownership, land ownership. Who first comes first have difficulties, that there are already stakeholders who benefits for using the water in catchment areas, not taking into account the new requirements for the future and the changes that climate change will bring. So what we need for systemic change is as well as new technologies, which we will elaborate in this session, as new perspectives on finance, as well as a full awareness of the importance of societal awareness and involving the societal system. When it comes to the session of today, I would like to give 3 ideas on how the new technologies might speed up this systemic change. And the first of it is that we have seen tremendous, great examples of how large sets of data and data collection and new data production offers us opportunities for new insights for operational water management. And we developed early warning systems which allow people to have with no costs, very easily accessible, reliable information on what is going to happen tomorrow, the day after, and to prevent that extreme water events really kills people because they were not alarmed or not aware. And this also creates big opportunities, and that's my second point, to accelerate learning by combining the intelligence of data scientists, people who know what they can do with data and data-driven modeling, to combine it with the experts, like the experts in my institute, who have deep insight and deep knowledge in what happens in the physical system, that we are not competing the data versus the deep insight of the expert, but that if we combine this in a very intelligent way, that we can really improve our knowledge, and we can spread the knowledge, and we to everyone who would like to take this into account in decision making on investments, in financing decisions, but also for the operational part in saving lives and be prepared. Last point I would like to, before I hand over to Monica, is that the technology offers also opportunities for citizen involvement. As I said, for system change, it's crucial to involve the people who are in a surviving mode. And around the globe, people have, in many cases, access to cell phones and smartphones with applications that offers them the opportunity to bring data to the scientists, to do measuring themselves, to give signals real time to the scientists. So we can really use the walking data collectors with their cell phones to improve our real-time knowledge. And on the other hand, we can provide them all for free or almost for free with the information on their immediate surroundings to be prepared. And I think this is creating awareness among societies that something's going on and we have to act upon, but it also will create involvement of this intelligence of the communities, and it will improve our insights in what to do. Later on, for example, we are as experts on the one hand involving and seeing in new partnerships like with Microsoft. Amy will elaborate in her speech on this project where we try to develop global models for real-time water management. And I think for us, this is also a real learning experience to team up and to see how we can put our efforts together from a common driven mission to save human mankind and to create circumstances that living in delta areas, watersheds, is worth giving birth to children and creating a prosperous future for them. This session will be moderated by Monica. Monica Altamirano is a Deltares specialist on public-private partnerships, so that's why she's involved, and she's also a system thinker, and she will guide you through this session. So I'll hand over to Monica.
Thank you, Annemieke, for bringing us into the spirit of this session. Thank you, everyone that is present here today. As Annemieke was saying, we are facing ourselves like three impossible crises, and seems like those catch-22 situations. How do we solve it? If we go for economy, maybe we have problems in the health side. If we go for our environment, are we putting also in danger our economies? But yeah, what we think also from a system thinking perspective is when we find ourselves in such double bind, we need to add one extra layer of complexity, as we didn't have enough, but still this new dimension could help us see solutions that we don't see without it. And that's why we today will be discussing on the role of disruptive technologies. Maybe they can bring us and create together a enabling environment for investments that are more sustainable in water and also more sustainable use of water resources in ways that we have not been able to achieve before. So without delaying the process, so today, as you saw in the agenda, we will have basically 4 keynotes on different aspects: disruption in participatory planning, blockchain, what is Microsoft also doing about it, and then also closing with an example from Peru and how they have embraced ecosystems also as a disruptive approach to water, to achieving water security. Then we will have a discussion with the panel. Then we'll go in a breakout session where you all that are participating can discuss peer-to-peer with each other. And we as conveners will be accompanying you along with the speakers from the panel. And we'll come back to close the session. So to start, I would like to introduce Mala Subramaniam. She's the CEO of Archeam, where she leads the scale mission for sustainable participatory water security, working with large governments and NGO programs through catalyzing ecosystems actors and leveraging open public digital infrastructure. She comes with over 3 decades of experience in strategy and execution in banking, education, agrotechnology, and the not-for-profit sector across multiple geographies. She has proven expertise in implementing transformational processes for scaling standalone startup and new lines of work in established organizations. She has a management degree from the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, and she's a certified executive and business coach. With this, I would like to open the floor for Mala, who will tell you what and how they are disrupting the status quo in India.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Monica. I will just start with sharing my screen. That's okay. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone here. I am Mala Subramaniam, CEO of Arghyam, and I'm really excited to share my thoughts on some very simple but powerful digital ideas that have unlocked huge potential for scale in participatory water management. It is extremely important that we solve for water security urgently, as we heard before, as it is at the intersection of public health, climate change, and livelihoods. We have collectively, as a sector, been addressing the problems of water insecurity in the country for at least over the last 30 to 40 years. At Arghyam, we have first-hand experience of this, having worked with civil society organizations in this space for 15 years. Yet, if we were to add up all our work, we would probably only have reached under 10% of the people who need help. We still estimate that 600 million people are vulnerable to issues of water scarcity or quality or both. If we continue with current operating models, it will take us 35,000 years to solve the problem, give or take. So status quo is really not an option. And of course, this will have a direct impact on SDG 6. This is because there are some fundamental frictions that exist when we try to scale work with communities in the center, which we have to necessarily address. India is a groundwater economy, drawing more groundwater than USA and China combined. So water security in India, for the most part, depends on understanding and managing groundwater as a common pool resource. There is a need to understand the complexities of aquifers at a hyper-local level, but groundwater is invisible, and it is difficult to engage with something that is invisible. Therefore, communities need more interactions and not less at scale. The 1 to 2 training schedules per year that are typical of a program are extremely insufficient to build understanding of this resource. We have seen how digital tools like Zoom, of course, thanks to the tailwinds from COVID, when used with robust demand-led curation processes, can increase interactions many-fold. More importantly, it brings more women participation as they can now manage their home and work much more seamlessly. Another big anxiety in participatory processes is that while the process is continuous, our current methods to measure and manage are discrete. This popular Hindi proverb speaks to that and implies that it is difficult to believe something that one can't verify or validate. Often programs are left wondering if communities have actually been involved in the plans for their villages. This results in a lack of confidence to scale the efforts beyond a few pilot villages for which we can afford enough resources to validate action. Therefore, creating the ability to see, so to speak, is a core enabler for scale. Let's imagine that there is a way we can wire up training interactions and field activities so that we can get real-time data on what is happening as they happen. Simple to use digital tools like the participatory digital attestation, which only requires participants to scan in and out of session, releases tons of verifiable data that is useful for participants and the program. Participants can use their attestations as a record of their skills. They also get content that they can refer to when they want. This is particularly important because often there is a lag between the training date and the actual application of that knowledge. In turn, programs get useful, verifiable data on who was trained on what and where. They can use this to become much more evidence-based in their governance at scale. Since groundwater is invisible, another very useful digital tool at scale is CLART, Community Landscape Assessment and Restoration Tool, which allows the participant to reliably know recharge and discharge areas based on the geoposition. This is particularly helpful as it is near impossible to ground truth all plans with physical presence of experts at scale. This tool allows for more confidence in remote vetting processes and accelerates the progress of plans for funding. Another core challenge is that program after program finds it difficult, if not impossible, to locate data and information from previous similar efforts in the same location. As a result, most programs spend the first few months, if not years, in recreating baseline, looking for trainers, looking for content, and then training the same people on the same thing again and again, which takes away precious time, not to speak of the loss of agency for participants, many of whom may not actually need the training that they're given because they're already trained. This is like everyone building cars, but nobody building the road, with the result that the cars have limited purpose. So building enabling digital infrastructure that can host and service these assets so that they can be reused with ease is a necessary condition for scale. Let's imagine that all the assets generated with the digital tools are now available for people and programs to search and leverage. What would that look like? This idea of participatory digital infrastructure that allows for data, and here I include knowledge and information, to be treated as commons is a very critical amplifier for scale. This data is like nutrients and belongs to the communities and should be liberated from the confines of a program. For this to happen, one powerful idea is that we have to collectively agree to contribute to core digital community registries of people, content, data, plans, and artifacts, which can become the foundation for local planning and action. This needs to be open and verifiable so that it can be trusted beyond programs. It should adhere to agreed standards and be interoperable so that we can combine information from different programs and different time periods to analyze and gather useful insights. This will allow for convergence to happen between partners, programs, and departments, and truly allow us to see if we are net consumers or net contributors to the commons. This is very difficult to do today, with the result that we are never really sure if our work is causing negative externalities, especially as water connects very differently with life, livelihood, sanitation, urbanization, agriculture, industrialization, etc. This often results in resistance to scale, as there is an anxiety that negative outcomes, if any, may get amplified. This is an evolving piece of work, and we need more people to come together to grow this idea of digital commons as platform builders, tool builders, adopters, researchers, policymakers, funders, etc. Here is an example of a content registry which allows for use cases for participants in programs by making trusted content searchable and discoverable. Having seen these tools and infrastructure being deployed, we see a tremendous validation of the 4 core problems we feel are worth solving at scale: that of convergence, liquidity, accountability, and participation. In just 2 years, we have seen a many-fold increase in the ambition to scale without compromising on quality, and with a substantial reduction in unit cost across the 4 states where these are now active, some in partnership with states directly and some through civil society organizations. This has been very helpful in enabling state capacities, for example. Meghalaya has been able to embrace this for their natural resource management, where their vision is to have a center of excellence which brings together all their NRM work paired with this digital thinking. They are now targeting state saturation, that is all 6,000 plus villages will have community-made plans in 1 year. That is a 20 to 30x increase in scale on baseline models. Their Center of Excellence website, which will go live shortly, is aggregating all these assets and making it available for people and programs. On the bottom right is a color-coded map that points out recharge and discharge areas and the type of recommended interventions in each village in Meghalaya based on science. The blue circles on the bottom left represent number of trained people in each geography, and one can actually drill down and see the details of the person in each village subject to consent. Over 2,600 people and 800 content pieces are ready for public use and engagement as of today. This has made it possible to design incentives aligned to outcomes rather than just pay for inputs in training. These tools are also democratizing access and building the agency of communities. Shareable here is an example of how a village community facilitator in a remote village in Meghalaya was able to use these tools and actually build his village's first check dam. And there are many thousand Shareables now across Meghalaya. This has allowed us to see a pathway to pivot from program-originated, program-managed environments where nothing is left behind when a program exits, which is the dominant model today, to a program-originated, community-managed model where people and content are left behind, to eventually move to a community-originated and community-managed model where all the assets, including data and plans, are left behind in the locations where they belong, which is the only way we can manage our country's diverse water and natural resources. Communities should have a way to understand their own situation and have the ability to access expertise and funding to solve for issues as they emerge. While Arghyam has been nudging and catalyzing the scale thinking, this effort is a result of many parents coming together as thought partners, implementers, advisors, digital partners, government leaders to craft and build the imagination and execution. This points to the centrality of SDG 17. And this is what has given For Water, which is a growing association of like-minded partners, the wings to come together for a shared mission to enable water security for 100 million people by 2023. This is a journey. It is our hope that more people can join this movement to shape and enable participatory digital assets that can amplify efforts at scale for participatory water management. Thank you.
Thank you, Mala. And with that inspiring presentation on how the digital commons can help us direct our work more towards outcomes and not input, I'd like now to pass the word to Rick Ekelberry from Origin Clear. He's the founder and CEO of this innovative water technology company that is delivering water solutions for industrial customers worldwide. This company is based in Texas with international partnerships and has developed a license an invention that treats industrial and agricultural wastewater with very little energy and no chemical. Rix came to the water industry from a quarter century in high technology, specializing in commercializing breakthrough technologies. During the dot-com, he worked on a series of tech successes such as QuarterDeck's Clean Sweep Security, software vendor Panda Software, and the sale of companies to Earthweb, Be Free, and Bell South. Just prior to founding what is now Origin Clear, he helped drive security software company Cyber Defender to an IPO on the NASDAQ and its president and chief operating officer. With that, I'd like to, before we start, Rick can present to us also the work and how blockchain is changing the game in the water sector. Rebecca, we will show a very small video on what Origin Clear is about.
At the end of the day, water is what we care about, all of us. We better care about it because without water, 3 days later, you're dead. A lot of water is dirty, creating illnesses, viruses, long-term chronic illness, you name it. So we need to be, all of us, working in water, not just a select few. And many, many people feel that way. I get constant emails from people saying, what can you do about water? How can you do things for Flint, Michigan, all these things, right? That is the mission of all of us, is to do something about water. Well, we've come up with an idea to involve everybody and to empower. To 2018, when we were trying to launch our first crypto, which was called WaterChain. And our idea was to track water. And this is something that, in fact, Mala has spoken about, and I'm so proud of Mala and her organization, Arghyam, for having launched this grassroots initiative. But back in 2018, we were trying to figure out how to connect crypto to water. And the problem is that the water is valued in so many different ways, including free, that, how do you attach a value to it? So the crypto year 2020 was really a huge incentive for us to do something about it finally. And we arrived at a bridge between water and a potential currency market, which is a water as a service, where customers would start paying for water on a usage basis. And you say, well, don't the cities do this already? Don't the municipalities handle it? Well, the truth is that water infrastructure in the West is degrading, especially in America. It's in terrible shape and it's getting worse. And of course, in developing countries, it's hardly begun. And so there really, there really is not the infrastructure there. The municipal services exist often for consumers, but increasingly for businesses and industry and farms, it's not there. And so there is a problem of business having to do its own water treatment. Now, there's another major point before I go on with the crypto thing, and that is that the World Economic Forum has predicted that the next pandemic will be a cyber pandemic, meaning that we will see the same kind of spread of a society paralyzing virus, but it will be a digital virus. Now, what that means is that every layer of infrastructure is going to be attacked. The World Economic Forum has told us to expect attacks on energy infrastructure, water infrastructure, et cetera. And we could very easily find ourselves thrown into a dark ages. Yesterday, my power was down for 4 hours and I didn't know what to do. So think about a week, 2 weeks of that. So very quickly, things become pretty desperate, even in the most sophisticated society. The solution to that, aside from trying to harden the infrastructure, which we should do, but it's very hard to do, is to decentralize. Put the responsibility for water treatment and purification at the edge. So it's very important for businesses, especially, to do their own water treatment. If you have a brewery and you have a lot of wastewater, there's an opportunity to treat your own water and thereby get a, first of all, it'll cost you less than having the city do it in America. And secondly, you have the opportunity to recycle, which is not happening in America at all. In America, we have maybe 1% recycling. So that is the new structure, is decentralization. It's a mega trend, really. And what we found was that what best suits these people is water as a service. Don't make me pay $1 million for a water system, just let me pay as I go. And that was where we launched this water on demand. Now, I'm going to circle back to the idea of crypto. Now, with water as a service, we have every gallon of water in this system has money attached to it. So now you're tracking water and money. And so you end up with something you can turn into a coin. And that was our, as you saw in the video, I described a pure investment coin called $H2O. That was where we came up with this idea of taking our investors who are investing in water systems already and letting them have dividends in coin. And what's cool about that is I could take my coin that I received that has all my built-in profit shares, and I could send it over to Monica or Anamika or Gabrielle seamlessly. No, just change the wallet address, and all of a sudden the dividends are going to them. And that is the promise of this digital marketplace. So that's on the one side. But the problem is, especially in America, is that that kind of coin is only available to the elites. Why? Because we have a Securities and Exchange Commission that does not want anybody to play with money except the rich people. And so it is only available to the 1%, which is why we came up with the other side. Clear Aqua is a network, a participatory network that we are building right now. I've just commissioned the development of this coin, and it will happen before the end of the year, where water problems are alerted up through a network that then turns into proposals at the delegate level. And then eventually these proposals are filtered over to the investment side. Now, what I like about this model is that we want to include networks that are already being built, for example, by Mala's company, right? Why not hook these in? And this is not, this Clear Aqua network is not origin clear. This is supposed to be something that enables everyone to participate and ultimately think of it as connected networks. And that's where it gets really, really exciting. So I'm very excited about where this is going. I'll be happy to answer questions, and feel free to email me anytime at ceo@originclear.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Rix, for taking us also to another way of organizing the water sector. With this, I would like to introduce Amy Luer, Global Lead for Sustainability Science at Microsoft, who will tell us about Microsoft is doing in this space. She's the Global Lead for Sustainability, and previously she served as Executive Director of Future Earth, Assistant Director for Climate Resilience and Information at the White House in the Obama administration, and Director of Climate at the SCO Global Threats Fund, and Senior Environment Manager at Google. Dr. Luer spent the first decade of her career working in Latin America, where she co-founded Agua para la Vida, a non-profit organization that works with rural communities to enhance access to potable water. Currently, she serves on the Foresight Committee of the Veolia Institute and on the boards of several organizations, including the Carnegie Climate Governance Initiative and the Global Council for Science and the Environment. She has both a PhD in environmental science and an MA in international policy studies from Stanford University, and a bachelor in environmental systems engineering from Humboldt State University, and a BA in philosophy from Middlebury College. Oh my God, Amy, we are so happy to welcome you. I can see that from your background, you can relate to the different aspects and experiences have been presented today, and we look forward to hear what you are already doing from Microsoft towards water security. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Monica. It's great to be here, and I look forward to the discussion. Let me share my screen here. I just had it up. Why is this not coming up now? That's funny.
No worries. It will work soon, probably.
We just did this, and I don't know why it's not letting me.
Does it say that you don't have permit to
doesn't show
present,
it doesn't show my. That's so odd. I've done this so many times. I'm not sure why. Let me just try one more time here. We just did this and it worked. So here it is. I don't know why it wasn't showing up before.
Perfect.
So can you see it now?
Yes, we just need it in the presentation mode.
All right, great. Well, it's wonderful to be here. And Microsoft has been partnering with Deltaris in a number of different projects, and I will mention those a little bit, but I wanted to provide a context here of, Microsoft obviously is a big tech company and has made big commitments to working in water and sustainability broadly. And I want to put that sort of into context. How do we think about technology in the our sustainability journey, and that of the partners we're working with around the world? At the core, in terms of thinking about sustainability transformations, we really see the digital transformations that the world is going through and the sustainability transformations as needing to be interlinked if we're going to succeed in either one. And I say that in a dual sense, because the digital, I do believe deeply that the disruptive technology can provide an enabling condition, but only if those technologies themselves are also sustainable. So this is a core part of our mission, looking at these from two perspectives, ensuring that the Microsoft's technologies have a sustainable base, and that we are working with our partners to provide those transformations to address big sustainability challenges. And so in that context, we see at Microsoft a real business imperative to address our carbon, water, waste, and ecosystems from a number of different perspectives. First, reduce the exposure and risk to our own business across these different areas. Second, take responsibility and accountability for our own footprint across these different areas of sustainability. And then finally, to support our customers and partners in their journey to transformation to sustainability, to really transform the world's production and consumption system. And we can't sort of take any parts of these as not part of that systems change, because one part without the other doesn't really tackle the whole problem. So, this community, of course, recognizes the challenges of water stress around the world. And I don't need to go into those in depth, but I highlight this here to understand, well, why is Microsoft addressing these? Fundamentally, it's not a hard case to make internally, because there's a recognition that water stress is being experienced around the world. And Microsoft is a global business. We have a global footprint. And we reach customers around the world, and our industry is around the world. So the fact that 30% of the global population live in water stress areas, and that 74% of all natural disasters that are experiencing over and over and over again are water related, these are concerns to our core business. These stresses influence Microsoft in terms of our physical operations, but also our suppliers and our customers. And so for those very reasons, these are front and centers to our journey in our core company business. But of course, climate change is also exacerbating these stresses. The IPCC AR6 report just came out. We have those documented. There's a whole chapter on how climate is influencing water sector. That's becoming much more certain than it has in the past. But we're also seeing these just in our very own eyes. And as climate attribution science has improved so dramatically over the last few years, we can see the contribution of climate change to various different events that we see happening around the world in almost real time. And so these are also wake-up calls for our companies and for our suppliers and for our company and for our customers, how to integrate that information to allow us to respond more effectively is at sort of the core of the kinds of things that I do, leading our global sustainability science program, working with engineers in our business and customers around the world. But the other thing that, again, this group knows, but it's always important to reinforce as we look at solutions to these problems, is that while climate change is exacerbating these problems, there are a lot of other factors that are too. And in some cases, the other factors are even more dominant in seeing the problem. Agriculture, urbanization, population growth, consumption patterns, wildfires themselves in terms of water demand, these various different our energy choices. Water is embedded in and is influenced by all of these various different factors, and unpacking that and understanding how to address that is really part of the challenge when we think about integrating sustainability science and digital tools to drive these changes. And in this context of recognizing all of these are together, we really put water and our water commitment in the context of our broader sustainability program. And I never like to talk about any one of these commitments without talking about all of them, because I see them as an integrated whole. So last year, Microsoft made a commitment across these different areas. We committed to be carbon negative by 2030, that is, remove more carbon than we emit, and then also remove all of the emissions that we have emitted historically since the beginning of our company in the 1970s. We've committed to be water positive by 2030, zero waste by 2030, and protect more land than we use. I'm going to hone in on the water positive side specifically because that's the conversation, but I want to remind, really emphasize this is really within, the context of achieving a broader sustainable world. So in our operations, I'm going to go through quickly in our operations to become water positive by 2030. We're focusing on reducing water intensity in our operations, very, first and foremost. We're also looking to replenish more water than we consume by 2030 and enhance access to 1.5 million people to clean water and sanitation services. This we see as a comprehensive approach to how we not just use our own operations, but the places that we operate to also build resilience into those systems. Other areas that we're working to achieve these goals is really focusing on research and innovation, both with our internal to our company, with partners in our research institutions that Microsoft runs. Working with customers and partners to develop tools, to digitalize data sets that can really address problems on the ground at the community level as well as at the global level. And finally, to work to use our voice and work with partners to promote policies and collective action to really make systems change in this space. Because I think the technology, the markets, and the policy are, of course, all critical. I want to hone in, given the focus of this conversation here, of this session, on the areas of sort of research, innovation, and partnerships. One area in terms of, just our operations where we're reducing water and energy use are interconnected and so important, of course, for ensuring that the technologies we provide are the cleanest that are available, is how we use water to cool our data centers. We're doing a lot of innovation to reinvent how data centers are operated, to reduce the energy use, make them more in a circular economy context, and reduce the water use. And one of the ways we're doing that is experimenting with actually putting data centers underwater to both reduce energy and water use. And lots of positive learnings have been coming out of this, and developments are happening with this as we speak. Other ways in terms of innovation and where we're innovating is also collaborating with others. We have a grants program, we have machine learning programs working with different communities around the world. And the one I want to hone in on is the Planetary Computer, which is an effort to bring data together across these systems to help to transform how we monitor, manage, and ultimately govern the environmental resources. This is an open source platform with data catalogs, APIs, and applications, and an operation hub where people can, at different scales, begin to look at and develop tools and applications and use applications to solve sustainability challenges in terms of managing resources. We've worked with partners. This is really, you can think of the Planetary Computer as something that we're partnering with the world to build. We believe that we need to have an open source platform where people can come together, build tools, access data, and solve problems where we do need collective action, and to solve these issues from bottom up and top down approaches. And we've just begun this process, but we have a lot that is currently available in terms of we've worked with partners to look at land use and land cover assessments, human modification evaluation, conservation planning, so classification and planning tools. But the areas that we've also worked on is forecasting. How can we develop tools that enable communities at different scales to integrate their own data as well as data that's available in the open access at a global scale in the Planetary Computer to produce forecasts about water risks. This is one area that we've worked closely with Deltares to leverage historical and model data to assess the climate risks in zone and flood zones around the world. And also worked about water availability predictions in different places around the world, but also really importantly, predictions in other areas that also influence our water use and our water demand, deforestation, fire risks. All of these have to be thought about together to look at that collective picture of the vulnerabilities and the opportunities in the different regions. So, there are lots of, the whole conversation we could have about learning, and I hope some of the things that we have in the conversation after these presentations are about that. But I highlight here a few things that I think are relevant to what we are working on. And one is that, it's often said that water is local. I guess I want to really highlight that I think that, as we look at building the planetary computer, solving these big problems, seeing the reports coming out of the IPCC just last week, I think it's important to recognize that I see water as both local and global, and creating the digital disruptive tools to be able to address it, I think will be needed to see this in these both ways and manage that from a both bottom up and top down perspective, as well as a local and global context. The other is that water cannot be addressed in isolation. This is a theme here of my talk, because I believe it very passionately, that we can't look at water without looking at our ecosystems challenges. We can't look at water without looking at our carbon challenges. We can't look at water without looking at our energy challenges, and all of those are vice versa. So having that as an integrated strategies for approaching water is critical. And finally, water data, the timely data is critical, and trusted data is critical. And one of the reasons we are working with both issues of satellite imagery and participatory work and open source is really so that we can enable the world to build a planetary computer and support that to tackle the problems of water security and sustainability overall. So I think that's my last slide. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you very much for showing us how, it's very interesting to see that Microsoft, in the one hand, is, as a user of water, is finding their own, technological solutions to become water positive, but at the same time, from the technology perspective, really working to get data that is trusted, right? And that's what I see the three presentations coming together, that is trusted to enable these public and collect individual and collective investments that make sense towards water security. With that, and going back to what is this data for, right? And how can that inspire changes in different geographies and enable also that top-down, bottom-up approach in planning? I'd like to pass the floor to Gabriel Quijandría, Director South for IUCN. Gabriel Quijandría was till very recently Minister of Environment in Peru, and he has a master's degree in Natural Resources Management in CAE Business School in Costa Rica. He's a recognized expert in environmental matters and in the management of natural resources, and with extensive experience in different institutions, promoting the development of the Latin American region. In addition, he has experience in matters of policy and environmental management, financing of sustainable development, conservation, and biodiversity and climate change. Between December 2011 and August 2016 and March 2019 and November 2020, he held the position of Vice Minister of Strategic Development of Natural Resources of the Ministry of Environment. And like I said before, in November 2020, he was appointed Minister of Environment by the President Francisco Sagasti. With that, as you can see, he can share with us the path of Peru towards embracing ecosystems as critical infrastructures as part of their competitiveness strategy. So please, hereby I'd like to pass the floor to Gabriel. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Monica, and thank you for the invitation to join this discussion. The idea behind my presentation is to show how some decisions taken at the higher level of a national government can allow for initiatives as the one Mala, Amy, or Rix presented us, and how they can work in an adequate environment generated by certain decisions taken by the government that actually finally it only gives the signs. it does not do the work. The work is done by someone else, by a company, by communities, by actors but in most cases are not public actors. So the idea is to give a hint on that. Now, I will share my screen. Thanking again for the invitation. Is it visible right now? Okay.
Yes.
A little bit of context. The relationship between Peru and water has never been easy. Water comes either too less or either too much, and these four problems are the ones that we have identified as the major ones we have to deal in Peru: water availability, water related disasters, access to drinking water and sanitation, and water quality. In terms of water availability, you have to take in account a country where you have 60% of the population and 85% of the economic value generated in the country located in this Pacific Basin area that has less than 2% of the water that it's available for the whole country. The big chunk of 97% of the water, it's here in the Atlantic Basin. So going to the Amazon, to Brazil, where we have less than 30% of the population located. And additional to that, we have this water-related disasters situation that, to give you an example, in 2017, we were having around February, we were having major forest fires happening in this area due to drought and problems there. And 2 weeks later, we have this very same area underwater due to a coastal El Nino happening in 2017. So we went from extreme to extreme in a couple of weeks, experiencing serious problems. And we found that those watersheds that were best preserved or best conserved were the ones able to handle better the impact of fires, or the impact of water happening in these areas. So the decision to why don't we bet on ecosystems was a natural one, and then we started to work towards different tools and different approaches, but these four ones are the ones I want to highlight in this presentation. We build our national determined contributions under the Paris Agreement with a big focus in water. We push for the approach of natural infrastructure to be present in different planning and decision-making processes. We started to push in coordination with the Ministry of Finance the building of new investment models, and we push for the retribution for ecosystem services model to happen and to be implemented in the real world. In terms of water indices, we have been able to include 31 adaptation measures related to water, with a focus in increasing water supply, reducing the impact of extreme events, and ensuring water management especially for those watersheds that are vulnerable to climate change. We identified 10 NDCs related to drinking water and sanitation, 6 related to energy, 7 related to agriculture, and 8 that were cross-cutting between different sectors, and that included a clear bet on natural infrastructure, on ecosystem conservation and recovery of ecosystems, monitoring of water quality, and the need to increase coordination and collaboration to build adequate governance in terms of being able to put in place integral water management or integrated water management models in responding to climate change. Regarding climate change and water availability, there's something I forgot to comment. According to our last study on glaciers and lagoons, we have lost around 57% of our water, of our glacier cover since 1970. So that's a major problem affecting cities such as Lima, that is a 10 million city located in a desert area. Then the bed for ecosystems and this approach, trying to understand the continuity between the ridge and the reef. So from the mountain to from the top of the mountain to the sea was one that we chose to have in Peru and try to mainstream that in different sectors, in the agriculture sector, in the water and sanitation sector, in the energy sector, trying to build a collaborative work with other ministries, with other actors from the private sector, from the public sector, from the local governments and regional governments as well, and as well civil society. This needed the development of these new investment models that were focused in allowing ecosystems to be considered as a public good, and do that to be subject to the investment of public and private money. How do we change the understanding of the decision makers working in investment in water management for agriculture, water management for sanitation, or for energy production, for instance, to understand that the ecosystems have a major role that needs to be incorporated in the project cycle of the project investment cycle of so we work with InvierteP, that it's the system that is used by the government to evaluate the public investment and which decides which projects are going to be funded by the public budget. We worked closely with Proinversión, that it's the external investment promoting agency on how they can incorporate the approach of natural infrastructure in their portfolio, and how to develop a portfolio of bankable projects for them to incorporate in their roadshows with the more traditional projects. How to work with the private sector through mechanisms such as works for taxes or PPPs, and how to take the opportunity of certain situations as reconstrucción con cambios, which is the program we deployed as a response to what happened in 2017 with coastal El Niño. Reconstrucción con cambios means rebuilding with changes, on how we have a completely different rebuilding process that recognizes the need to connect the rebuilding process with a new view that incorporates ecosystems as part of the solution. So we work generating the legal framework, the regulatory framework for the Ministry of the Environment, and then work with the authority for rebuilding in terms of incorporating these integral solutions for the problems that we faced during coastal El Niño, and try to incorporate an extra component of natural infrastructure to those two that were identified originally related to riverine defenses and dams and reservoirs. How do we provide for this gray infrastructure to be more sustainable, to be able to comply with the expectations, with the needs the people or the country needs from this infrastructure, combining it with the green infrastructure, with infrastructure that is provided by ecosystems. And finally, we work in terms of deploying this retribution for ecosystem services tool. That is, there are these voluntary agreements between people located in the high area of a watershed with people or institutions located in the lower area of a watershed, in terms of recognizing the work of, for instance, of peasant communities by water consumers here in Lima, and how we can provide a direct transfer of money, of resources from the people that gets benefits from the way these peasants handle their soil, their agriculture, their water there, and that generates a benefit here in the lower area of the basin of the watershed. And we started to work on this with the passing of the Merece law in 2015, and we have started working with these ecosystem services that are the ones in blue here. Those are the ones that have started to be considered as part of the Merece system of the retribution for ecosystem services, with a clear success in terms of incorporating the water and sanitation sector, having the water regulator, the drinking water regulator, being absolutely involved in this process, generating a formula for water utilities to be able to incorporate this logic of ecosystem payment for ecosystem services as part of their tariff, of their fees. And also we have been also able to work with irrigation boards in certain areas of small scale agriculture, and there is the work to try to involve large scale irrigation, hydropower companies, tourism companies, but that is an ongoing work. As you may have been able to see, the bet here was to generate the conditions for innovation to happen. Innovation coming from the government, coming from civil society, coming from the private sector, in terms of generating the general framework for ecosystems to be recognized as part of the solution for our water risks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriel, for sharing with us the process that the Peru has gone through in the last decade to recognize the role of ecosystems in the provision of water and support. It's really inspiring, and I think it reminds us of this kind of public-private dance that we need to have, in which the public sector can give the right signals for private sectors to act. Now, given the time that we have left, I would like to open the floor for questions. You can raise your hand and then make it live, your question. We will have to, with the time we have left, it's better to do it like that. So we will change also to a gallery view in our meeting, so we can see each other. So when you ask the question, please, if you raise your hand, please put your camera on. That would be ideal. And I mean, I had, before we get the hands already raised, I had a couple of quick questions for our panelists. So Mala, you already presented what you're doing in India, and I would like really to know, how are you financing these programs, right? And what is your experience also in that process of scaling this program?
Yeah.
Any challenges? Just shortly.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've just begun. And like I said, RGM is catalyzing this. We are seeding this. We are almost the angel, if you will. And we're reaching the point where it needs to attract other funding. The operating model for that, I mean, that's not evolved as yet. We need to figure that out. There are some ideas and we're working with our current partners. For instance, one of the ideas is that we are already seeing that this is reducing the cost for training, right? Because a lot of the training cost goes into input costs, like I said, for logistics and lunch and dinner. And you can now actually take the trained people and get work out of that, which is allowing for people to be paid for, right? So which at the end of the day should reduce the cost for training. So the whole idea is that at some point it will replace current costs. And we will be able to change to an operating model where the unit costs drop dramatically and you actually get nonlinear returns. At this point, we are funding it. It's philanthropic capital, but very soon we see that once the value is established, the operating models should change to accommodate other forms of capital.
Thank you. Thank you. And please, in the audience, I mean, just if you have questions, just please raise your hand. We will note it and give you the word. As you're not doing yet questions, I have another question for another of our panelists. So Amy, you presented what you are doing. So, I mean, like a multinational company, but also as a technology, a company who can change, you could say, the game and this problem. And if you look at the work, that the groups like Mala are doing, and the overall goal that we have to get to water security, where do you see Microsoft niche, or what should be the role Microsoft should be playing like 5 years ahead from now, in helping us get to that breakthrough?
That's a big question. I guess, one of the things that I would highlight is, one of the things that the approach we're taking with helping sort of the world build a planetary computer is open source. And that's because I think that, this idea that we do need to think about water. It is very local, but it also is, it has to be thought about in the global context. And that means we need a lot of information from different sources to understand the risks that we face, the opportunities we face, and to change the system of how we monitor, manage, and trade, govern the use of water. And so in that context, I think that, if I look 5 years out, have we been successful in this mission? It seems that the efforts that we've done have empowered the kinds of projects that have been talked about today to do more independently and to do more together, and to really collectively drive that systems change that we need of governance of water and the water economy, and how water is used in the economy and valued in the economy. Because I think that does require a real foundational base that can be taken and used and shared in different settings. And that foundation is what we're trying to do, work with partners like Doteras and others to build not just the data, the platform for compute, but also partner with those applications that can help people do more.
Thank you, Amy. That's really helpful. No, it's about this foundation. Now, I would like to give the word to Simon Cody. I think you have raised your hand if you want to go on, Simon, and make directly your question live.
Yeah, thank you. I am Simon Utuong from Lake Victoria Basin Commission, Water Resource Officer. I'm very happy with the presentation of the Amy from the Microsoft, and he was talking about how we can monitoring. Me, I am on the lake side, and then we have a difficulty of we can monitoring the lakes. So I don't know what the experience of the Microsoft that they can help. What is the application that they have that can help monitoring the water, whether the water quality or the precipitation on the lake, apart from the remote sensing? Do they have any other technique that somebody can use? And also, he mentioned that they are working with the deltarians. Are they working also with the other organizations like our Lake Victoria Basin Commission and other commission? So this is what I just want to ask from him.
Okay, thank you. That question is for you.
Should I just jump in? So great, thanks for the question. Yes, we're working with lots of different partners, and as I said, it's actually a relatively new process. We only sort of launched. We started working with partners over a year ago, but we're really actively working to look to work with partners who can solve big problems that can be replicable, that can be open source and shared. That's the vision. So really eager to get more partners to work on key problems. But in terms of the question of satellite, yes, direct sensors, working with innovators to connect that, to be able to connect things that are happening in the community to solve bigger problems. I do think that we're, one of the areas that we're honing in on are things that can scale or be replicable, just because I think that that's an area that we can provide benefit, we can provide an asset. So if it's a problem that is just unique to a place and the solution can't be scaled, that's not to say we wouldn't do it. We probably wouldn't gravitate to that first. We want to see innovation that's happening at community scales that we can help build out to solve that problem, but can take learnings from that others people can use. Not for us, but that help those communities help other people's communities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon, also for your really nice question. There was also a question from Alejandra. Are you there? Do you want to go live and share your question? Otherwise, yes. Well, we also had other question, Levi. Okay, well, I can't. I have to say that in this setting it's a little bit more challenging. So I would like to actually now go, because we have only some minutes left to go toward the closing of today. And also let you know that the chat function will go on, so you can keep doing your questions and we will post there the presentations and so forth. So thank you very much to all our panelists, to all the people who are joining us. I think it is clear that some changes are happening in the technology space that can help us, like Amy also said, rethink the governance of the water sector and maybe hopefully deal with some of these kind of common resources and problems that we have, that doesn't allow, for example, for so much effective collective investments. And it was really inspiring to hear from, actually, I think the presentation shows that is so much needed, that local and global perspective, that public and private corporations. So in the one hand, Mala presented us what is happening on the ground, but all this data, of course, is that possibility. What they are doing is enabled by some other global changes and advances in the technology way. And at the same time, what Ritz was presenting on how they're dealing with the demands from the private sector can also inspire some of the changes that need to happen in the public sector. And Gabriel really reminds us of the role of the government to set that framework, that regulatory framework that can enable much more accelerated action by public and private communities together to get to water security. I would like also to emphasize that in a way, technology is of course very important, but still we see how do we create and move forward with leadership in both the public and the private sector to make use, this technology is used in a way that create changes that benefit the most vulnerable groups. Because I think something very powerful about what Mala said is that by advancing convergence, liquidity, accountability, and participation, they're also making sure that they are monitoring the real outcomes, that we're not actually with all these actions, programs, or actions that we're taking in the water sector, creating actually unanticipated and maybe not so positive side effects. So if I look together to all the presentations, I think we're making great advances to measure that invisible, that make us for us also really difficult to manage these common resources. And as we go to that, to much more transparency, all these processes of decentralization also that we have seen in the sector, maybe finally get us to the empowerment and the you could say more democratized way of taking decisions about how to invest in water security. We really thank you for being here with us. Like I said, just we will post the presentations, and let's make sure that each of us in the global, local, public, or private side of the equation start doing and taking the actions towards this disruption in a positive sense and systems change we need. Thank you.